Well, as promised, I'm going to give you some detailed insight into my Boris 2026 OS, the operating system that I decided to set up for this year. In order to understand why I'm doing this, I need to tell you an anecdote first. About 20 years ago, I ran an organization where we first decided to set up a system that was related to how the White House is set up. Back then there was a really cool film. I'm a rom-com fan, and the film was The American President with Annette Bening and Michael Douglas. And I made every staff member in my team actually watch that film in order to understand how I want the setup copied systematically. And the film was a nice comedy, so the people had no problem watching it. And then after that, I could use the roles that they saw by naming the people they saw, the actors they remember. You know, a great Michael Douglas, Martin Sheen was the chief of staff, and Michael J. Fox, he was the security advisor to the president. And it was really great. And so you could use those people as metaphors in order to explain activities that I expected to be fulfilled. And why that set up? Because I consider a business year kind of like a presidential term. You know, it's there are specific goals, and there is a specific time frame in which those goals are to be achieved. And goals are achieved by team effort usually, and that demands strong leadership, of course. Everybody needs to understand the goal and why do we want to get there. And then they need to understand their role and the tasks that they need to work on. So that White House metaphor is actually quite effective, and it is a strong, picturesque metaphor. Everyone knows about the White House, and there are very interesting examples there. So, and then a few years later, I set up an academy, a coaching academy, and we repeated the metaphor. And back then I was traveling with entourage. I had assistants on site. I had a driver. You know, I had all kinds of people around me. Well, that was just kind of the setup of the company back then and the way we did it. All these roles were copied from like the setup in the White House. What comes with the White House setup is the roles on the one hand, and the other thing is rooms. Specific actions have a specific room. There is, of course, the Oval Office. Everyone knows about the Oval Office. What is done in the Oval Office? Well, that's the room where decisions are made. Major decisions are made and communicated in and from the Oval Office. Major meetings are held in the Oval Office. Then there is the situation room. That is the room where you have to identify the facts. What is the situation? You have to evaluate the situation. You have to evaluate the DEFCON level in the eye of the President of the United States. The level of alertness necessary, etc., etc. And then there are others like the West Wing. That's the place for execution. And then you have the residence, you know, for your private and your recreation. So maybe you understand what I mean. These rooms are assigned to specific activities, and that's a strong metaphor as well. In the 2026 OS that I set up, I'm using the White House rooms and the White House roles as strong metaphors and as prefixes. My calendar system is set up so I have rooms. Google Calendar offers you rooms, and you can create your own rooms, your home, your office, etc. Well, I don't have that because, as you know, I don't have a home, and I don't think I need a physical office, but I have virtual rooms, and the rooms are named West Wing, Oval Office, Situation Room, Residence, even Marine One, Air Force One, you know, depending whether I fly or whether I commute. You might think that is funny, but trust me, it is powerful, because it's the same like colors in your calendar. It gives you the opportunity to quickly identify what is it about. So the first thing is to identify the room and decide in the setup, what room is used for what activity, for what kind of task execution. And the other thing is roles. So I'm using calendar prefixes here as part of my setup, and I have this here on my Trello board. I'm going to give you insight into my Trello system later because that was requested. And I have an Oval Office slot set once a week at least for 60 minutes. I have Camp David slots twice a month, a day, a time slot for about a work day, to be able to do deep work, strategy, production. You know, it's a no travel day, so deep dives can be done in Camp David. Well, everything I do in Florence here, most of it is with the calendar prefix Camp David, because I'm going to do deep dives here, I'm doing strategy work here, and yeah, I'm actually, you know, I went back to a specific location, you know, so Camp David is the metaphor. Well, the Rose Garden in the White House is the place where you give the public appearance and you know, where you communicate to the press and that kind of thing. So I'm using Rose Garden for all the public stuff that I do, at least once a week, 19-minute, a fixed slot to work on those things. Well, West Wing is the execution area, and as I said, Situation Room, that is daily, and it's mainly about evaluating facts. You know, there's a signal light check system that I set up for cash liquidity, for legal and deadlines, for documents, for reputation communication, and for deal pipelines. And the other thing is, well, as you know, I survived a white-collar crime, and I have to protect my systems and the new setup and the work that I do. So I am also doing a DEFCON level check. That is, you know, checking to be able to make a decision on the necessity of alertness. You know, what is the necessary alertness on specific things? Am I in danger? Are activities I do here in danger? And how do I have to react to that? And then I have a scorecard check system, you know, where I collect facts about results that I produce, you know, actual proof. And I have KPIs for that, performance indicators, and I have trackers. I have trackers for, like, you have your counting your steps with your iPhone. That is a possible tracker, you know, going to measure your weight, you know, step on the scale once a day. That's a tracker. But I track my push-ups, I track my you know, several things. So I have trackers for that. Some of them are lists, but the idea is scorecards. So that's an insight there. And what I like to show you is that I'm using strong metaphors, as in rooms and roles and all that in the strong White House metaphor. I use that it's by coincidence or not by chance, because I understand that my role is kind of like the president role. I am the leader of the organization. I am in charge of the term that is running, and so the structure has to be set up, even though it's a team effort in the end to achieve the goals. The other thing is, how is execution done, and I'm going to give you an insight into my Trello board, so I have to think about how I do it. So it will benefit you, and you might be able to use some of those bits for your 2026. Make it your masterpiece. Enjoy the day.